Namaskar. Today we are joined by Shri Sanjay Pant, who is Deputy Director General at Bureau of Indian Standards. Mr. Pant, thank you for speaking to us. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you, Jai Sahab.
BIS has always been known for setting standards for products and services. How did this building construction standard come about? Tell us about the standards that you're setting for building construction.
Building construction is an important area. India is poised to become a developed nation by 2047. It's not possible that our industrial activities, economic activities, educational activities, healthcare activities can be done properly without proper infrastructure. Buildings are one of the important component of infrastructure, and therefore it is important that we have the right quality of buildings. And therefore Bureau of Indian Standards since 1970 thought it appropriate that we bring out a comprehensive National Building Code of India. And it was NBC 1970, as I said. There are large number of Indian standards for building planning, design, construction, more than 1,000 building materials. But it's very difficult to understand them, a large of them. Therefore, the building code interweaves all this information, makes it a cogent reading, and therefore the building code has come about.
And what are the main components of this building code? Does it deal with the standards of construction alone, or does it also deal with safety, like fire safety, sustainability and other stuff as well?
Yes, very rightly. The building code deals with building materials, building design, construction, operation, maintenance, repairs, retrofitting, the comprehensive aspects of the entire chain of the building aspects. Yeah.
We are just meeting a couple of days after an unfortunate incident in Saket. The building collapsed, killing 6 people. Do you think these building standards, if they would have followed, could these kind of incidents be avoided if the BIS standards are applied in toto in the construction of these buildings?
Yeah, collapse of building, in fact, it's a complex phenomena. Maybe it could be of various reasons. First thing is the building materials were of not the right quality. Secondly, the structural design was not appropriate. Thirdly, it may be all right building materials as well as structural design, but the execution was not of right quality, or the building was not properly maintained by the owners. So therefore, it is very important that we comply with the standards of building materials and components, the structural design codes that BIS has formulated, the execution codes, the construction codes, as well as the upkeep and maintenance of the buildings. And therefore, you are very right that if the National Building Code or building standards were followed, such an incident would not have happened.
So how do you enforce these codes? These are just voluntary at the moment, right?
Yeah, a very good question. Building construction is a state subject, and under entry number 35 of Schedule 7 of the Constitution of India, then further there is an Article 243W, under which a new amendment on municipality was brought out as 74th Constitutional Amendment, under which the regulation of building is vested with the urban local bodies. And therefore, the documents like National Building Construction Standards or Indian Standards on Building Construction, these are voluntary in nature. But then largely the entire gamut of building construction is dependent on these construction. These National Building Construction Standards that BIS has formulated, in fact, it is used in a multi-pronged strategy by the entire country. First, it is used to prepare the building regulations of the country. Secondly, it is used as a construction manual by the government construction agencies as well as private construction agencies, the builders, the developers. Thirdly, the code is used by the building professionals like architects, civil engineers, structural engineers, town planners, urban designers, building services engineers and contractors. And finally, this is also a very good educational material. The civil engineering and architecture is taught substantially based on the Indian standards on construction.
So if an audit has to happen for the building that unfortunately collapsed, BIS standards would be something that the authorities would be looking at, isn't it?
Perfectly right.
Related to that, in April, end of April, if I remember correctly, NCR, there was a big fire at a multi-storied housing complex in NCR region. 8 flats were gutted because of supposedly not following the safety norm. Do BIS standards also bring in the safety as regards as fire and other such hazards?
Let me tell you, the current document is called National Building Construction Standards 2026. This document is entirely evolved around 4 pillars of safety. That is structural safety, fire safety, and public safety and safety in construction. Fire safety, as you have mentioned very rightly, is an integral part of the document. Fire safety has been dealt in the document from the point of view of fire prevention, life safety, and fire protection. That is, first of all, there should not be any fire. So the building construction itself should be done using such material which are fire resistant rated material. In fact, we have to understand the nature of the building from fire vulnerability point of view. So the document divides the kind of building into 9 typology. Group A, residential; B, educational; C, institutional; D, assembly; E, business; F, mercantile; G, industrial; H, hazardous; and J, storage. So these, for example, residential building, the vulnerability is different compared to educational building and healthcare or hospital building, where people are not capable of their self-preservation, and therefore the amount of fire safety protocol has to be commensurate with that. And therefore the code provides that first, as I mentioned, fire prevention by understanding the nature of the building, using appropriately fire resistant rated materials, and then life safety. Even if there is a fire and propagation is delayed, the people need to evacuate. So there is a component, egress components.
So as in the evacuation of
evacuation.
So like you said, these building codes are all voluntary, and it's a state subject. So is BIS in dialogue with states to ensure that the codes are implemented in the urban bodies that are being constructed? Because we are seeing a massive urbanization that is happening, and like you rightly said, if we have to become a developed nation by 2047, urbanization, it will be the theme. Are you in dialogue with the state governments to implement these standards?
Yes, very rightly you said. Maybe by 2047, 50% of India would have been urbanized, and you need a large stock of buildings, including residential buildings. And therefore, BIS is working in collaboration with all the states and union territories. In fact, the building standards are used in framing the local building bylaws and building regulations. That's number one. And we organize a lot of seminars, conferences, training programs. We have a National Institute of Training in Standardization at Noida, and which is charged with the responsibility of training the state government officials also. So we are regularly in touch with them, training them, communicating with them, organizing seminars, workshops for them. And therefore we are trying to do as much as possible to educate them and bring them to the level of understanding that has been given in the building standards.
The standards, if I understand correctly, has allowed hospitals to go vertically higher than what was prescribed earlier. Explain to us what these new norms mean for a healthcare facility, public hospitals, and likewise infrastructure.
As you know, land is a very scarce resource, and there is no other way but to go vertical. And therefore, like other buildings which are residential and commercial building, we have decided that we can go vertically in case of hospital also, while maintaining safety, and because the vulnerability is altogether different in case of hospitals. So the building standards provide that that the safety should remain intact even if we go vertical, because healthcare facilities at a substantial height pose a substantial challenge for mitigating, and therefore it has introduced a concept of progressive horizontal evacuation. And in a hospital building, in the same floor, we will have compartments. If there is a fire in a particular compartment, it cannot propagate or go into the another compartment. So another place of safety is available with operation theater, all the medical healthcare facilities. So progressively evacuation will happen from the seat of fire, from the area where there is a seat of fire to the area with the compartment on the same floor. So the complete evacuation out of the building may not be necessitated. So this is how we have tried to deal with the subject.
Yeah. One of the other thing that is pressing is the India falling. There's several parts of the country falling in the seismic zones. How do you ensure that our buildings, our construction there are no seismic threats to the buildings?
Very pertinent question, because India is a disaster-prone country, and we are visited regularly by cyclones, earthquakes. Apart from the safety of the building itself in its design and construction. So building is to be designed, as the codes provide that the building is to be designed to deal with dead load, imposed load, wind load, snow load and earthquake forces. Building construction standards have incorporated the basic wind speed map of India and similarly seismic zoning map of India. The entire country is divided into 4 zones from seismically. Zone 2, 3, 4 and 5. The 5 being the most severe. For example, the area in the Himalayan region and some of the parts of the Gujarat, they are most vulnerable. So buildings have to be designed considering the possible earthquake forces that may frequent in such areas. So the building code gives a comprehensive feature as to how to plan and design these buildings to withstand the possible earthquakes in those particular zones, and also erect. In construction methodology also there are features available where the building in the event of an earthquake will shake and finally vibrate and come to its own original position without any severe damage.
If that is possible, then possibly we'll save a lot of lives. And
yes, because we cannot prevent earthquakes. But we can have our buildings which can withstand the shocks that may come with such earthquakes.
What about the buildings that were built before the code came in? Because your code can be applied for future projects.
Yeah.
There are a number of buildings in this country which are old enough, which may not follow your construction codes, or for that matter, the seismic guidelines that you have. How do we ensure that?
I remember the first seismic zones that we have formulated was in 1962, and since then attempts are made to disseminate it, and based on earthquake codes the building should come up. But you are quite right that there may be a large stock of buildings which may not be complying with the earthquake code. And therefore, we have developed the codes for retrofitting, repair and retrofitting and rehabilitation of buildings itself. So the entire process is in place, where you have to do rapid visual screening, understanding the weaknesses, do non-destructive testing, understanding the weaknesses of the structure from earthquake point of view, and retrofit it. So buildings today are being retrofitted, particularly the important buildings which are lifeline buildings like educational institutions, hospitals, or the buildings which are seat of power from where the entire disaster management has to be managed. So these buildings are progressively being retrofitted as per the Indian standards.
But to retrofit, there has to be an audit. Who does that audit to find out what old building is right and what is not right?
I think very good question. Buildings we have provided for regular periodic audit of buildings, whether it is from fire safety point of view or structural safety point of view, as you said, earthquake safety point of view. And periodically, after every 3 to 5 years, the buildings need to be revisited by a team of experts. And this protocol has also been included in the Indian standards.
These days, the commercial complexes that come up, they are a combination of food courts, entertainment zones, and likewise too many other things. How do you ensure that there is safety for all of them? Because at some point of time, few things take priority and few things don't take a priority over each other.
As I mentioned, there are 9 groups of buildings. And this is another 10th group of building, you can say, which is a mixed occupancy.
Right.
Different types of occupancy food court, as you mentioned, has a source of fire also. So it has got a different vulnerability, and therefore the code provides that in such cases of mixed occupancy, the most severe provisions will apply.
Okay.
So accordingly, the buildings have to be planned, designed and executed to take care of the most severe provisions.
As we progress, I think the buildings are also becoming more modern and more clitty. There are glass buildings that are coming up,
Yeah.
Particularly the commercial office complexes. How do you ensure that those glass buildings, with all those glitter and lighting and everything, they are also safe and not prone to fire and safety, other safety hazards?
Yes. Quite right. The glass buildings are not like ordinary windows. They are structural glazing, and they have to withstand, as I mentioned, there are various loads. So dead load, imposed load, wind load, they have to evolve to withstand all these vagaries of nature. And therefore, these have to be designed as curtain walls with spider fittings in place, and they need to withstand the wind forces and seismic forces, and therefore and including fire safety in the event of fire safety. So the code provides how to design such curtain walls using glazing, and also ensure their fire safety using appropriate sprinkler system at a particular location within the built environment.
After a particular interval, there has to be these kind of safety features.
Yes.
So, together with this modern building infrastructure, there are new things that are coming up, which are evolving. We still are evolving EV charging stations, for that matter. Because every complex, we're moving away from fossil fuels to electric battery operated vehicles, and EV charging infrastructure is now not just common in residential, but also in commercial complexes and office complexes. What special features or safety features need to be incorporated to help secure those premises as well?
I think as a modern document, the National Building Construction Standards and NBCS 2026 now gives an ample provisions for EV charging infrastructure. For it gives guidelines for parking of electric vehicles in a separate buildings, or in the building where we reside or work, including in basements. Only thing it prevents that it should not be these should not be parked in the last basement because of the possibility of flooding of in an eventuality the last basement causing the damage or a fire incidents.
So ideally they should be situated either on the ground floor or in the first basement.
Yes.
That is what you...
Yeah.
So the building code, you've already come out with 2 volumes of very elaborate and very comprehensive guidelines. Is there likelihood that you might update it with more modern information, more norms, more volumes to be expected soon?
Yeah, the basic code is already out, as you mentioned, and it has already become very popular, and lot of downloads from our website are there. It is available for free download from BIS website. It is a 3,000 page document. But as you rightly said, there are other issues. Actual execution or construction is also there. And therefore, we are also coming out with associated handbooks. One is on construction practices, management and safety. The other one is on landscaping and outdoor display structures, because not only indoor environment, outdoor environment should also be good. And the third one is on approach to sustainability, because whatever we do, whether it is selection of building material, construction activity, execution or maintenance, it has to be done sustainably. And the last is the existing built environment has to be protected. Therefore, the 4th handbook, which will come very shortly, is asset and facility management.
So, not 4 more handbooks, and
yes,
possibly you might then update everything into one comprehensive volume as well in future. Like other technology and other areas, construction is also an evolving technology with lots of developments that happen around the globe. Is BIS also collaborating with international bodies to evolve, to keep pace with the changing times and changing technology that are coming in construction and other areas as well?
I think this reminds me to just also share that in this revision of the code, we have brought out some of the new developments which are the first worldwide. One is introduction of 3D printed concrete constructions, and you can just print your house. There are already incidences in the country where the printed buildings have come up, and also a fast construction activity. Through a prefabricated, pre-finished volumetry construction, the entire room is cast in the factory and is transported, and it is then placed in place, and jointing is to be done. And so these are some of the developments. Rightly, as you mentioned, we are in touch with the best practices globally. We have access to the developments which is happening globally, and we are in touch with them so that our code remains one of the finest building standards in the world.
Lastly, your code is very popular in our country. A lot of people follow it. A lot of builders and construction follow this code. Are there any countries abroad which have actually reached out to BIS for adoption of this code, or in some form or the other, as well as to train their own standard setting experts in?
Yes, I think it's a very, very important question you have asked. The National Building Construction Standards, or NBCS, that we have formulated is very well sought after document worldwide. In fact, some of the African and Latin American countries have asked BIS to help them frame their building code, and we have communications from them. In fact, BIS organized a conference of the ambassadors of some of these countries in Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi very recently, and they all participated. And we resolved their queries and how BIS or India can help them in developing their building code of the stature that we have in our country.
So possibly also help them train as well. You might hold training workshops for these countries.
We have been holding regular training programs, and in our training institute at Noida for developing countries. And this building standards are one of the important subject areas where we teach them.
Mr. Pant, it was a pleasure speaking to you, and hope your standards are implemented in full toto.
Thank you, Jaydeep Saab. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you
so much.